Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Positively Dizzy podcast. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, the author of the Positively Dizzy book series and your host for tonight's show. Guys, I am so excited about so many different things and friends and family and all kinds of things that are going on today and next week that I will share with you a little bit later on in the show. For now, I want to just welcome you all wherever you are watching from and thank my sponsor, Michelle McKeown, over at Years of Experience. She will put together a fabulous vacation for you wherever you want to go in the world, and she will even help you plan that Disney wedding or event. How cool is that? And she has texting privileges, guys. If you are in a park or somewhere in the world and you need help, you can just text her and she will help you out. Just reach out to her at mmckeown at themouseexperts.com and let her know I sent you. Well, I don't know about you guys, but if you have seen a particular movie, you have a tendency to remember that moment in time, don't you? I mean, movies, films transport us. They really transport us out of our immediate reality and into that on the big screen, or if you're at home on the little screen. And I bet you that some of the Disney movies, some of the animations will have you remembering those moments, particularly in time. I remember the last time I saw Pinocchio, the original Pinocchio. I actually had the opportunity to see it at a special exposition at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. And I remember seeing it that day from an adult's point of view. And it is really different when you are looking at the animations that you saw as a child now as a grown up, doesn't it have a different effect on you? And one thing that I was really taken with that whole exposition is the detail of the storyboarding and some of the props and, just the renderings of various scenes in that whole movie. And then to actually see it live on the screen was really cool. It was actually today in 1940 that Pinocchio was first released in Brazil. Think about that. 1940. That's a long time ago, isn't it? Also today, it seems like it was kind of a famous day in Disney history, but also today at the Academy Awards in 1941, Walt Disney received the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award, which was actually an award given to creative producers, and he won that and was given that at the Academy Awards. I thought, wow, that would have been really, really amazing. Another thing that happened on this exact day, but about 12 years later in 1953, was at the 10th Golden Globes when Walt Disney was awarded the Cecil B. DeMille Lifetime Achievement Award. And it was an award that he was actually the only the second one to receive it ever. The first person actually was Cecil himself, who was a very prolific filmmaker. But I thought that was kind of cool. This is all happening on this exact day. Going forward a little further, almost a decade, a little over a decade more, was in 1962, Academy Award nominations came out for The Parent Trap, Absent-Minded Professor, and Babes in Toyland. I don't know if you guys remember any of those or seen sort of the ones on Disney Plus or whatnot, but Parent Trap I'm referring to is the one with Haley Mills. Now, I was a little too young to see those in the theaters, but I do remember watching them on The Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights, and that was beautiful because it was in Technicolor, but I didn't know any different, and I had a massive black and white television set in our living room, and I remember watching those shows on there, and it really makes me smile to think that they were all nominated for an Academy Award. So if we go further into our century, believe it or not, today in 2019, a movie called The Little Mermaid was celebrating its 30th anniversary, 30 years, and it was re-released on Blu-ray, DVD Blu-ray. And I kept thinking about that. I thought, gosh, so that would have been like 1989. I know that The Little Mermaid really was one of our children's favorite princesses. Ariel was one of our favorite princesses. And so much so that she had a mermaid's tail made for her specifically. Before all these mermaid tails are kind of like in style, she had one professionally made for her Halloween costume. And I think about that, and it wasn't until she was probably, I'm trying to think here now, it would have been probably 1999 or 2000 that she would have seen that movie for the first time. And I would have seen it along with her for the first time as well. But, anyways, we have a fantastic guest tonight, someone that I have to tell you, it has surprised me more and more with his knowledge, with his background, with Walt Disney, with the Walt Disney Company in the film genre of the company. And I'm very, very pleased to welcome Ron Clements onto the show tonight. And again, anytime I have anybody that I'm interviewing, if you guys have a question, just make a note of it, message me, online here, and I will do my best to answer your questions. Hi, Ron. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, hi, Kimberly. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you so much for taking time with us today. I was just, talking with the folks and telling them how, in getting to know you, how I've just been more and more surprised, might not be the right word, but just really amazed at how much you know about film and your life with the Walt Disney Company and growing up, and it's just really outstanding. Could you share with us some of the films that you were involved in creating?
Sure. Yeah, I started at Disney in January of 1974. So that was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
The first film I actually worked on was a featurette of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. I
Mm.
did sort of assistant work on that, and that was sort of me breaking in. Then after that, I became an animator. I was promoted. I became an animator on The Rescuers, and then Pete's Dragon I was an animator on, and I was a supervising animator on The Fox and the Hound.
Mm.
But I was getting more and more interested in story, and I wanted to get into story. And I worked briefly on developing the story of the Black Cauldron,
Mhm.
and then got very involved in doing a lot of story work on the Great Mouse Detective, where I worked with John Musker, and I became a director on that film, The Great Mouse Detective, and John Musker also was a director on that film, and we got along well. And then the two of us sort of have been kind of a team since then, and we wrote and directed The Little Mermaid,
Mhm.
and then after that we did the same on Aladdin and Hercules and Treasure Planet and The Princess and the Frog, and most recently Moana, which was came out 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem that long.
I know it doesn't seem that long at all. I mean, time is flying by, but you're mentioning that you were an animator and then you went into directing that. Did you find that a fairly easy transition for you?
Well, in some ways, in some ways not. I mean, there as an animator, you sort of work in a room by yourself most of the time, and you
Mm.
have your animation desk and your disc,
Hmm.
and I'm kind of an introvert anyway, so that and you draw at that time. All the animation certainly was hand drawn,
Hmm.
and it was a lot of fun. It was really enjoyed bringing films to life. Moving into story and directing, then you work with a lot of different people. So in that sense, it's different. I think what drew me to directing was just, as I say, I was interested in story,
Hmm.
and in some ways the whole story and how the whole story fit together. And um, and in directing and writing and directing in terms of scripts, you have a lot more sort of control, and so it's more satisfying that way in terms of the whole movie, that you kind of get to see it a little more the way you kind of hoped it would
Perceived it.
be.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed directing when I got into it. I aspired to be an animator. That was my original goal.
Hmm.
Although I did like to write. I wrote a novel, I think, when I was 11, that I got some nice rejection letters on. And I was just getting, so I didn't necessarily expect to make that transition. It wasn't my goal to become a director at
Hmm.
first.
Hmm.
But as I got more involved, and the studio was really great in that, they let you do a lot of different things and experience and be involved. I got to go to story meetings on the Rescuers, and recording sessions, and all the things. So I got familiar kind of with the Disney process, which in
Hmm.
some ways is unique.
Hmm.
I'd say the Pixar process is kind of, drawn from the Disney process, because that's a lot of Disney people
Right.
at Pixar who
Hmm.
started that. But both processes have a lot of similarities,
Hmm.
and so it was. I really learned a lot at Disney,
Hmm.
and that's basically kind of what drew me more and more to directing.
Well, I think that's actually quite brilliant to bring in the animators into those meetings, those storyboard meetings and recordings, because I mean, it's all interconnected, and I mean, it's basically having the right hand talking to the left hand, which I think is wise, because as you said, you know, you're in your little area animating that, and I think you could maybe just add more to an animation, right? If you are allowed into those meetings, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's always been at Disney, and also it's a very collaborative process,
Hmm.
and it's open. And the films John and I directed are extremely collaborative, because we got that from the experience that we had. So, people are always invited to have ideas, to bring their creativity to whatever they're doing, and any ideas of how to make the film better. Certainly, we listen to, and if it's a good idea, we'll sort of implement it. And it's trying to sort of keep all that under a certain amount of control,
Hmm.
because things can go astray. But it's a fun. We try to create a really fun, creative atmosphere, very collaborative,
Hmm.
and I think that shows in the film. It's really, the films are. I mean, there's so many people that are involved with the films, and so many people that bring their talents.
Hmm.
It's not like one person or two people. I
Right.
mean, it's a bunch of people,
Hmm.
and the films are what they are because of the people who work on them.
Right. Well, you know, there's one audience member here that is thanking you for the Little Mermaid that helped her through childhood surgeries. You know, she had very
Oh,
poor health. Yeah. And she said every time she, you know, the night before surgery, she would always watch Little Mermaid, and that would help her through her anxiety of what was going to take place the next day.
oh,
So she's very grateful. And I think that, you know, I really, all these films touch some of, you know, touch us all in one way or another, without doubt. And I was just curious to know what first inspired you to do what you do.
well, I when I was a kid, I liked to draw, and I drew a lot, and I liked animation. I liked cartoons. I drew a lot of cartoon characters. I remember
Hmm.
I drew Woody Woodpecker and Mighty Mouse. Those are some of the first ones. But I would say the thing that inspired me the most, was when I was 9 years old, and I went to see a reissue of Pinocchio in
Mm.
our local theater. And I don't know exactly why, but I was just completely blown away by that movie. It had
Hmm.
a huge impact on me. I sort of became obsessed with that movie. I went to see it again. It played for 2 weeks in Sioux City, Iowa, where I'm from,
Mhm.
and I drew all the characters and drew tons of drawings of the Pinocchio characters. And it was really at that point when I was 9 years old
Mhm.
that I really strongly felt like I wanted to be a part of something like that.
Mm.
And I really started thinking very seriously that I actually I wanted to work at Disney. I wanted to become an animator and work at
Mhm.
Disney.
I think that's quite actually an epiphany for for a 9-year-old, to be honest with you, because the fact that you could identify that, hey, people make these movies, there's people called animators that make these films, and to aspire to something at such a young age, that's incredible. And Pinocchio, actually, today, it was in 1940 that the Pinocchio was first released in Brazil. I was telling the audience before. Isn't that crazy? Like, it's been around for so long. And of course, we weren't old enough to see the original in the theaters until they re-released it. But it's really amazing how it's lasted, and how many generations many of these films are being
Right.
watched by.
Well, in the days before home video, I mean, Disney always had their policy of re-releasing, excuse me, all the movies every 7 years.
Mm,
Um, so a new generation could see them. I don't think I knew at first that Pinocchio was a reissue when I saw it.
right. Yeah.
After I saw it, I went to the library. I tried to find everything I could about animation. There wasn't a lot,
Mm,
but there was a great book by Bob Thomas called The Art of Animation,
mm,
and that book inspired me almost as much as the movie did, because it really went into the process and Disney and what it was like at Disney. It was focused on Sleeping Beauty, on the making of Sleeping Beauty, but
mm,
it dealt with Pinocchio and the history of Disney, and I learned a lot from that book.
mm.
Um, but yeah, it's actually Little Mermaid was the first film to go to home video, and I know Michael Eisner wanted to put it on home video, and it came out on home video. I think it was released in theaters in November, and it came out on home video in May.
Oh, wow.
And there was a lot of controversy about it
Hmm.
because I know Roy Disney was opposed to the idea, because he felt like once you put the film on video, you won't be able to re-release it in theaters
Mm,
anymore,
mm.
which sort of was true. But at the same time, I don't it and the films that followed became like phenomenally successful on home
Right.
video. I don't think anyone quite realized how that would happen and what an effect that would have.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
And I remember them being in the vault, right? Like, they'd go into the vault,
Yeah,
for
they go away, and then the Little Mermaid. Like, I mean, the Little Mermaid was the first new film that came out on home video. Before that, Sleeping Beauty had come out on home video, and Pinocchio had come out.
Hmm.
Maybe another one, I'm not sure, but yeah, yeah, like with the Little Mermaid, it was available for. It was like on the top of the bestseller list of the video. It was like number one for a year,
Yeah.
um, and then finally, then they take it, they put it in the vault, and and you can't buy it
Yeah.
for a few years, which creates more of an appetite to it. Then they
Right.
let it out again,
Yeah.
and then it sells all over again. So it turned out to be pretty successful. I think a lot of people saw the movies possibly that never would have seen them if they just played in theaters.
I agree, and I still have all the Disney movies from when my kids were little, on VHS, and then, of course, a few on DVD. But I remember my friend always letting me know when the movies were coming out of the vault, and she would be like first in line to pick up her copy. And I can't get rid of those. I have to keep them. They're just a
Yeah,
keepsake.
I've got all my original ones. The other thing that, of course, happened was that kids would watch these things over and
Oh,
over and over again. They would wear out the videos,
yeah.
and I don't think that was quite anticipated either. Although it makes sense in
Yeah.
some way. If you like the movie, you want to watch it again. I was only able to see Pinocchio like twice, and then it was gone. And
Oh.
I wouldn't be able to see it again for 7 years, and
Yeah.
that's a long time when
Yeah.
you're 9 years old. It
I
felt like it was
know,
gone
right?
forever.
Oh,
So I
I
was trying to
know.
hold on to it in some way. I think that's why I did all the drawings.
Yeah. Oh, that's a neat way of looking at it. That's probably, yeah, to keep that sort of that memory alive, right? Of what you enjoyed. Something that I found fascinating is that you actually got to work with some of the Nine Old Men. And for some people that are watching that don't know who the Nine Old Men were, they were the original animators that worked with Walt Disney. But wow, how fortunate is that, Ron?
That was so cool. I mean, I was 20 years old when I started at Disney, and as I got into animation, I had a mentor who was Frank Thomas, who was one of the Nine Old Men, one of the great Disney animators
Yeah.
of all time. Of course, I never met Walt Disney. I would have loved to have met Walt Disney, but I
Yeah.
they told a lot of stories. I heard a lot of stories about Walt, and working with Frank was incredible. Frank. Um, was an animator on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He did the
Mhm.
scene with the dwarfs where they're mourning the death of Snow White,
Oh.
which was probably the first time in history where people were brought to tears in an animated film. I don't think
Mm.
people knew that that could happen. They knew
Mhm.
you could laugh, but
Mhm.
it was the first time people found out animated films could make you cry. And he
Mm.
did very key animation on Pinocchio and Bambi and the character of Captain Hook in Peter Pan, many others. But and one of his sort of greatest scenes is the spaghetti sequence in Lady and the Tramp.
Oh,
And
that's so famous.
Frank was a great actor, and you can see that acting in with those two dogs as they're eating spaghetti, but they're really sort of falling in love with each other at the same time. And
Oh.
and that's what I learned. I think the most from Frank was about acting and getting into the heads of the characters and finding the personalities and the uniqueness to bring those characters to life so they can seem real to an audience that you really believe that they exist. I mean, it's
Mhm.
almost hard sometimes to realize that they don't really exist. They're just illusions on
Yeah.
paper.
How interesting is that Pinocchio, which had you just over the moon about, and to be able to work with somebody that worked on Pinocchio? My gosh.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it was pretty cool, and yeah, I worked with Frank for 2 years, and he was a mentor. I was an aspiring animator. I guess an animator trainee is, I guess, what you called it at that time,
mhm.
and so I would do my animation for the rescuers. I worked with him on the rescuers.
Mhm.
I would show him my animation. He would go over it, show me how to make it better, do drawings, talk a lot, and then I continued to do scenes, and I think the way they had it at that point was when you got like 100 feet of animation, which is uh, probably a little over a minute of animation. When you got that much
Oh,
in the movie, you
wow.
were promoted to animator, so that's how I became an animator. And then
Okay.
then I worked more on my own, although I was still checking with Frank,
Right.
and yeah, it was amazing. It was just a fortunate thing. Like I say, I was 20. Frank was 62, I think, when I started to work with
Wow.
him. I'm somewhat older than 62 now, but at that time, 62 seemed
Ancient.
pretty old to me. Now I think he was a kid. I
Yeah.
mean, what?
Yeah. Not so
But
much, right? Yeah.
but that was kind of how the situation was at Disney because the doors had been closed for a number of years. I was really lucky in that after Walt Disney died, I think 1966. I'm really bad with dates, but after he died, the
Yeah.
studio was really thinking they might just phase out animation.
Ah,
And it was really only because of the success of The Jungle Book, which was the last film that came out before Disney died.
right.
It was surprisingly successful and all over the world, and that made the studio consider that maybe they should keep it going. So they
Oh,
started a training program in the early '70s to to um, to bring in new talent, looking for
right.
new talent,
Mhm.
to start training people. And they actually were looking for people that were around my age. Like I said, I was 20. I
Mm.
didn't go to college, but I
Mhm.
did. I I had gone to California, worked at Hanna-Barbera for a short period of time, and I took some life drawing classes at Art Center. I really wanted to work at Disney. I didn't know about the training program until I happened to come across a magazine article by John Canemaker that was
Mhm.
all about the training program. And I applied, and I had a film that I had made, and I had my life drawing and caricatures, and I was accepted. Although the way it worked, it was kind of an audition process at that time. That
Mm.
when you were hired, you were only hired for 4 weeks. And another one of the nine old men, one of the great animators, Eric Larson, was in charge of the
Oh,
training program.
wow.
And you had 4 weeks, 4 weeks to do a personal test, an animation test. You could
Mhm.
animate anything you wanted, and Eric would work with you and show you how to make it better and teach the fundamentals of animation. And at the end of 4 weeks, the review board of the nine old men,
Mhm.
the animators, they would look at your test and
Mhm.
decide if they thought you had potential or not. And
Wow.
if they did, you did the whole thing again for another 4 weeks. You did another test. Still, you didn't know if you would make it or not. And after 8 weeks, if they saw your second test, if they felt um, good,
Mhm.
then you were hired permanently, and then you kind of work your way up. So that's how I
Boy.
got into Disney. So I was really lucky being the right age at the right time when
Mhm.
they were really looking for people.
That's it. Those are pretty heavy hitters to be watching your work for the first time and determining whether you'd go on to the next level.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Wow.
scary. I was so nervous, and there were, when I got there was really talented people. Don Bluth, John Pomeroy, some, and I had never really been around people who could draw so well and could animate so well. Andy
Right.
Gaskell, great, yeah, great artist that came just ahead of me.
Mhm.
I was scared to death, and I was so nervous. I almost didn't make it through the first 4 weeks.
Wow.
I was almost frozen, and it was only as the little bit that I did at the last and during the last week, I think that sort of won them over slightly. And then the second
Phew.
4 weeks went much better, and
Yeah.
I was more relaxed the second 4 weeks,
Oh
and that
gosh.
test turned out pretty well.
Yeah, that's why you're you did everything that you did. My gosh. Now, I mean, with all the projects that you did work on, is there one that sort of had more of I guess an impact on you personally than another?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, all the projects have their own impact, and all the projects, they're such long projects. They
Right.
take a lot of times 4 to 5 years, so they're a big
Wow.
part of your life.
Mhm.
But I would say The Little Mermaid was one that really, there's just a lot of things about The Little Mermaid that are special to me. I pitched the project. I pitched it at a gong show to Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, who had just come over to Disney from Paramount and
Mm.
were looking for new ideas. And I pitched it as a two-page treatment,
Mhm.
and it got into development. And then John Wesker and I wrote the script, and we got to work with Howard Ashman and Alan Menken.
Oh, beautiful.
Howard, an incredible, brilliant lyricist and writer and a director, and Alan Menken, of course, who went on to win a million Oscars. And that was so cool. And they wrote most of the songs right there in the animation building, so we could hear the music coming out of
Oh,
their room all the time. And when
wow.
they had something they liked, they would call us in, and it was exciting. And the other thing about Mermaid was it was the first film that was really, I think, broke through with a sort of new generation at that time.
Yeah.
It was kind of the baby boomer generation. I was in my early 30s on The Little Mermaid,
Mm,
and I was one of the older people. John and I are the same age.
mm.
We were both the older people. It was really a lot of young people, a lot of
Oh.
eager young people, and I think everybody kind of recognized the potential of the project, and
Mm.
everybody put everything they had into it. It was not a high budget. It was a reasonable budget, but a strained budget. But
Mm.
it was a great experience. And then the film, it previewed really well, and the studio put a lot into marketing it, and it
Mhm.
broke through, which is kind of the dream I think all of us at that time had. We wanted to kind of have our Snow White or our Pinocchio, or
Right.
like a real
Yeah.
classic film,
Yeah.
and it really sort of became that. And everybody, it seemed like after it came out on home video, everybody saw it.
Mhm.
and everybody was familiar with it, and that was a new experience, and it really changed my life. But yeah, I'd say that film is still to me, have a lot of really special memories about that movie.
Well, you know, and the thing about it is you go into any Disney store, you're going to see Little Mermaid stuff in there, merchandise, right? Yeah, I mean, for crying out loud, they have attractions, Little Mermaid attractions. How cool is that? How that just blew up, right? It was just
Yeah, I
something
mean,
amazing.
I didn't really expect it at the time. I mean, I didn't
Mhm.
sort of look into the future, and now it's like, now I'm there again. I'm bad with numbers, but it came out in 1989,
Yeah.
November of '89. So that was quite a few years ago, and it's
Mhm.
still around.
Yeah.
And of course, they're planning a live action version now.
Wow.
Um, and um, and yeah, that's really really cool that it's still around. And there's a whole generation that grew up on the film,
Mhm.
and the other films that we've done. I know it's so cool to run into people of a certain age, certainly, that they'll say like, "Thank you for my childhood,"
Mm.
and of course, I never experienced that. I experienced watching The Wizard of Oz every year because when I was a kid, The Wizard of Oz was on around the holidays every
Right.
year, and
Yeah.
so it was the one film that you could watch sort of over and over, although it was a
Mhm.
year in between.
Mhm.
But I never experienced. I would have liked to. I would like to have watched Pinocchio on home video over and over again, but I couldn't experience that. So, so I don't really know what that's like, but I
Yeah.
realize certainly that those films um, had an impact that way,
Mm.
and that they really affected the people that saw them.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. I even hear, I mean, I don't know, there's one film that doesn't have a reaction of some sort to somebody. You know, you have met, throughout your Disney career, of course, you have met a lot of really fascinating people. I mean, wow, Howard Ashman, Alan Menken, that's pretty cool. Can you share with the audience any other folks that you
Oh yeah.
have met? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah, it's we've met some incredible people and some famous people. I mean, Robin Williams on Aladdin was certainly, that was amazing to watch him work.
Mm,
John and I wrote the script, with Robin Williams in mind, with the idea that there would be a lot of improvisation involved.
mhm.
And he was just on fire, and I've kind of never seen anyone. We recorded him in 4 hour sessions, and he just
Oh, it's a
it would
lot.
just come up with more and more ideas, and there was so much material. It was hard to figure out, kind of picking what to use. There was so
Mm,
much that was kind of left on the cutting room floor. And we worked with Danny DeVito, who was amazing. Emma Thompson, that was so cool, and Martin Short, David Hyde Pierce. On Princess and the Frog, worked with Oprah Winfrey,
mm.
and that was interesting. I actually had to pitch The Princess and the Frog to Oprah at Disneyland. Um, I was possibly more nervous about that pitch than any
Oh,
that we'd ever done, but she liked it.
yeah,
Fortunately, she wanted to be in the movie, and
yeah.
she even gave us a tour of her Montecito mansion
Oh,
later on, which was cool.
mm,
And on Moana, it was working with Lin Manuel Miranda. We actually brought Lin on a couple of years before Hamilton came out,
mhm.
in the public theater. We had interviewed Lin in New York and really liked him, and he seemed like the right guy. And he mentioned at the time that he was working on this hip hop kind of rap version of the story of our forefathers, focused on Alexander Hamilton. And our reaction was, okay,
What
that
is
sounds
that?
interesting. Good luck with that. We little did we know, and working with Dwayne Johnson's, just amazing, such a good guy. I saw something on the internet recently. It was like a list of presumably like the nicest people in Hollywood,
Oh,
and both Lynn and Dwayne were on that list, and I would say that's absolutely true. They're two of the nicest people I've ever met.
oh,
You just can't imagine, and it was just so great to work with, and so talented, but just
mhm.
really really good people who really care and really put everything they have
Nice.
into a project. But yeah,
Ah,
that's been really fun.
I love that. Is isn't it great to meet the good people of the world?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's and most of the people we work with, the actors and the other talents, the great musical talents that we've worked with, Randy Newman. I
Oh,
would have
yeah.
to say most of the people we've worked with have been like that. They've been
Mm,
even some people that we might hear that this person might be difficult or that person might be difficult.
mhm.
We didn't really experience that. I think everybody seems kind of like on their best behavior when they're doing a Disney film.
Yeah. Well, I think you know what? Hey, we all grew up with Disney. We did. And I mean, I think it would be quite an honor to be a part of a Disney film, to be honest with you. So I can definitely see why they would want to be putting their best foot forward, trying their best. It's Disney for crying out loud, right? You know, you are very, very successful, Ron. And what do you think you attribute your success to? Is there a formula, or is it just
Well,
you,
I mean, I
or
don't
what do
know.
you
There's no formula. I think it did help me that I was fairly focused in what I wanted to do. Like say even at 9 years old, and fairly driven. Just in as I guess I'm an introvert. I was actually as a kid I was kind of pathologically shy,
Mm,
and still for years and years I was very shy. I'm
mhm,
still very shy, but not as much as I was,
mhm,
but I was driven. I mean, I sort of knew what I wanted to do, and after I saw Pinocchio, like I said, I went to the library. I got all the information that I could. When I was in eighth grade, I had a paper route, and I used that money to buy a Super 8 camera, a
mhm,
film camera that had the capacity to shoot animation, and I made little Super 8 films,
mhm,
and um, and I at the time I mean, I wanted to go to school to learn animation. At that time, there really wasn't very much. This was before CalArts had their animation program. They actually started a character animation program a couple years after I started at Disney.
mm,
But at the time, it was not something that you could really. I mean, some schools had animation programs, but not the kind that really taught you animation in a way that would allow you to kind of work in the industry.
mhm.
Um, but so I was lucky. I was really lucky in the way all that worked out. But I definitely had focus. Yeah, I would say it's different now. Certainly, yeah. When I was in high school in my senior year of high school, when I met with my guidance counselor, um, um, and I told him that I wanted to be an animator and I wanted to work at Disney. He
Mhm.
just kind of looked at me like, like we
What?
looked at Lin-Manuel Miranda when he said he wanted to do a musical of Alexander Hamilton. But it just didn't quite um, make sense. It was just such an unusual thing at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different nowadays. There is so much animation going on
Mhm,
nowadays, and both in live action and there's hand-drawn animation. There's so much computer animation, and a
mhm,
lot of schools now have really good animation programs. And there is a lot of work. I mean,
mhm.
it takes talent, it takes perseverance. But there is, and there are so many jobs now. It's I mean, a person could say they want to work in animation, but there are so many different jobs now in animation. There are
Right.
more jobs that are more technical. There's still a lot that involve drawing
Mhm,
and like storyboarding and character design and visual development, but certainly computer animation, all the different areas of computer animation with characters and effects and textures and lighting
gosh,
and
yeah.
staging and it's just so I would say if any for anyone that wants to work in animation
Mhm,
because there are it would be good to familiarize itself as much as possible with
mhm.
all the different things and jobs that go on and try to determine where you feel like you would be drawn to the most to fit in the
Right.
most and then try to go after that
Mm.
but it's a good time for animation. Animation has done well during the pandemic,
Right.
certainly particularly in the early days because it is possible for animators and they are now. I think everyone is working at home
Hmm.
and collaborating through computer screens and Zoom
Right.
and able to do that.
Thank goodness, because otherwise we wouldn't have, I'm just thinking back to the Little Mermaid days or the Rescuers and things like that, where that was not something that we had, there was no technology like that to do that, right? And, you know,
Right. The Little Mermaid was actually the last Disney feature film to use animation cells, which is how all the films were done up to that point.
okay.
Where the animation drawings are in this case they were Xeroxed onto animation cells and then
Right.
painted with some inking. And that was how all the films were done up till then. And after the Little Mermaid, the next film after the Little Mermaid was the Rescuers Down Under, which I
Mm,
didn't work on, but that was the first film done with what was then called the CAP system, computer animation process. I don't know.
something
It was
like that.
CAPS. It was called CAPS,
Okay.
and and so no more cells. That Little
Hmm.
Mermaid was the last film with cells. So if
Mm,
you find cells with the films after the Little Mermaid, those cells were done special, just to be sold. But the Little
wow.
Mermaid cells and all the cells before that were actually in the movie. If you own a cell and you frame your way through the movie, you can find your cell in that movie.
Oh, I never thought about that. I actually have a cell from a Donald Duck something or other. I'm going to have to find out what that is. I don't have one of Little Mermaid, although that would be really cool to find one. I it probably cost an arm and a leg by now, but I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they have. The original cells have gotten expensive. They were
Mm,
not at the beginning. Way back, I mean, I was in Iowa. I wasn't in California, but when
mm.
Sleeping Beauty came out, I know they sold the Sleeping Beauty cells. I think for $2 a piece.
Oh, oh my
You could buy
gosh.
them, and they're worth quite a bit more than that now.
Yeah.
Certainly, as our all those original cells.
Wow. Ron, holy cow. Just amazing, amazing career you have had and continue to have, really. I think, once an artist, always an artist. And I'm sure that you are doing, I know you're retired, but I don't think we ever really retire, do we? I think,
Well, we're still like I'm still working with John some, and we talk about stuff, and they're doing a few things here and there. And I
yeah.
actually wrote a book. I wrote a book
Oh,
about my 45 years at Disney. It's been kind of delayed through everything with the pandemic, but I
mm,
think it's scheduled to come out at the next D23. There was going to be a D23 this year. It was going to come out this year,
right.
but because of the pandemic, that didn't happen. So I think it's
Ah,
going to come out probably August, September,
yeah.
a year from next August and September.
Can
But
you share with us the title of that so we can watch for it, Ron? Or
no,
that's a
no,
secret
not yet.
yet? Okay,
There's
okay. I
no
just
official title.
I
There's
wasn't
no
sure.
official title yet. I think
Okay.
right now it's called Ron's Animation Book, but
Oh,
I don't think that's going to be the title
okay.
when it comes out.
Oh gosh. Ron, thank you so much for spending the time with us tonight. I think really your work has inspired, I would say, millions of people. And I think that's got to be the best thing ever to have had that opportunity to do that. And I just really want to thank you for taking the time to share all of that with us tonight.
Well, thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed talking to you.
Oh gosh. Well, listen, have a wonderful weekend, and take good care. We'll be in touch.
Okay, you too.
Thanks. Bye bye. My goodness gracious, there is so much that goes on into those films. And when I think about an animator doing their thing, that is very isolating for sure. But I also never looked at animation as acting, like you are actually acting, and trying to take on the character to put that into your work. And I think it's absolutely amazing. So I hope you enjoyed the show, you guys. This is I learned something new every time I do a show, more than one thing, that's for sure. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm actually going to be in the Walt Disney World area next week, and I'm going to arrange something to so that some of us can meet up because it's been so long. And I want to say hello to some of you guys that have been wanting to meet up over the last few years, and I'm going to set it up so that we can do that. And you can watch carefully on my social media to find out when and where that will happen. But for now, guys, have a great weekend. And so I won't be on next week, but I will be on the following week. And we're just going to have a great time in one of my happy places at Walt Disney World with my husband. So for now, guys, please be well, be safe, and God bless. Good night.